if anybody would defend the old model of a TNT and maybe still think it should be reconsidered sometimes, it would be me. And the reason for that is that to me there's an enormous difference between Sutra and Tantra, and in your approach as a student towards your teacher. And I'm kind of scared here. Even if you're doing the flat model now, you're probably going to be great because of it. I'm also involved with the Tantric Monastery in Holland, which is kind of a space where you and I meet and our work too, and TNT is central to that. So, but even if that's the case, the approach towards your teacher as a student is actually very, very important, because you have to ask yourself as a student, is your teacher a role model to you that you're going to imitate? So you try to be as close to your teacher as possible, because this is the way a child looks at a parent.
Right.
Okay. So children will look to grown-ups as we imitate them, we play around, and that's when we do the cross-dressing and all that, we're kids.
Right, right.
And so we could be men and women one day, right? Or anything in between for that matter. But the problem is that if you ask yourself seriously as a student, do you really want to learn the most possible, then often what's called crazy wisdom comes to the forefront. And you know, the worst teachers out there in terms of lifestyle, you know, the real knockabouts, the alcoholics and drug addicts or wherever they are, can very often be the best teachers.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not saying you're any of those things. I try not to be any of those things myself, but I think you and I, in a way, both as personalities, have to defend our right to also sometimes be crazy wisdom.
Right.
We are not here to be other people's role models.
Right.
We aren't.
Yeah.
And if people in media today make an injunction that you're not allowed to teach anywhere in our society unless you're this perfect role model that can be fired at any time for doing anything that's politically incorrect.
Yes.
Okay, deplatformed, as it's called. If they demand, and that becomes a condition in our society, it'd be really dangerous territory.
Exactly.
Because to me, the best mentors I had, the best teachers I had in my life were often really crazy guys, right? Really crazy guys, you know, weirdos like mad, and had really mad lifestyles. And especially when I work with shamans in the jungle, my God, the best shamans out there weren't the really polite ones that had a family and kids. No, they were the real weirdos out there in the forest, but they taught me much more than anybody else did.
Right.
So I think it's important here to stress also the integrity of Tantra itself. We're not Sutra.
Right, exactly.
Can you understand what I mean? Maybe,
totally.
maybe you're interested in the whole crazy wisdom aspect because you're being accused innocently of so many things that actually weren't true. Because you probably never desired to be crazy wisdom in any way, and maybe I do. I don't know where it's different here, but can you see the point in also defending the integrity of that teaching?
Yes, and that, you know, this word teacher is such a loaded word. You know, we consciously moved to use the word workshop facilitator because it's much less loaded. Exactly for this reason of, I always say to people, focus on the teachings, not on the teacher. Look at, you know, the value is in the teachings. Don't use me as a role model. I'm a shit role model. I mean, I'm flawed. You know, you wouldn't want to copy me. The teachings can be valuable, especially if they, you know, get proven over time and other people in the network can use them, and other, you know, schools or other organizations can find value in them. Good. But don't focus on the teacher and try to emulate the teacher. That's what we found, like, that's a big problem if you do that. It's you're kind of sticking your neck out, because, you know, none of us are perfect, especially not me. You know?
No, but even the folks trying to piece had accusations about your private life, like if that had anything to do with the fact you're a teacher or facilitator, if you like to use that term, which is deeply unfair. I mean, it's just, and it also, I think the whole idea that we can demand perfection from other people is a ridiculously infantile idea. An infantile fantasy, which is incredibly dangerous. And it's because it's been used that we can fire politicians over almost anything they do. So if a politician utters a single politically incorrect term, suddenly they can be fired the next day. And we don't realize by doing that we're firing the best politicians we could possibly have, and then we get the B team and the C team and the D team. And then we're wondering why our politicians are crap. Who else wants the job? You know, we've shot everybody else by now. Now, if that sort of disease, I would call it a disease, a pathology, if that pathology starts hitting even things like the TNT, for example, which you should be a grown-up if you join. You're reminded constantly when you join something like
adult responsibility.
You're adult, you take responsibility for yourself. When you sign these documents, make sure first that you take responsibility for yourself, because anybody who signs up with us has to do that. You're also being screened. So even if your judgment isn't good enough to judge whether you're an adult or not, we also will have a say on it.
Yeah.
Both you and I have to agree you're an adult before you even start with anything.
Correct, yes.
You've done that. You've gone through every procedure possible to make sure.
Well, I think we got in the beginning we didn't do that enough. We didn't screen enough, and that was one thing that gave problems. And I think a lot of the articles are referring back to old times. I think we got much better at that screening process.
You were a startup,
right? We were a startup, right? Yeah. It's like me, kind of by myself at the start. A few people trying to work this stuff out myself, and yet I made mistakes. So not like what they're writing in Volkskrant. I mean, they just make things out of complete proportion. But innocent mistakes, trying to find the right way. How do you really help people, and what's the process to make people really clear on their boundaries? Because this word teacher, it is so loaded. Also, like from a kind of a primal way.
I like to reconquer it.
If you can educate people on that, great.
A real bulldozer.
But the problem is, it's also very, very deeply conditioned. Like I found that the people who would really kind of put me up on a pedestal, Alex is great, he's wonderful, he's perfect, I love him. So they're the people that turn one day, and because they don't get the love that they feel they wanted from you, they use that as justification, and they go complete hate and look at every situation, often where you're just trying to help them, that you were then trying to manipulate
so
it.
They ironically accuse you of being a guru the day you stop being a guru to them.
Right. Exactly.
It's ironic.
So, but it's because then you've got this whole, looking up to mummy and daddy, and all of a sudden now I'm a teenager, I'm going to rebel against mummy and daddy. It's quite a primal thing that seems to happen. So that's why I was kind of that's the main reason I retired. It's just like I'm so sick of this kind of projection thing. This is not cool. Let's put a whole bunch of other facilitators in place and have a network. It's much more sustainable. We've had hardly any complaints since then, and that's why I was getting a bit pissed off with Volkskrant when they're looking at us and going, it's old news. It's like they're looking at an old system where we had that hierarchy with its challenges, and they're still thinking, he's still behind the scenes pulling the strings. I mean, I just completely lost interest. They're like, please, can we have your advice on this? Oh, really? Do you really want to ask me? I have very little idea what's going on in TNT. They'll hear they're doing this, they're doing that, they're doing this ritual, this workshop. I was like, wow, okay, sounds good, great.
Oh, that's sexy. It's like being in a rock band. The reputation is much better than what you actually do after the concerts.
Right. Yeah.
And it's true. But you talk about retiring, and I know what you mean, because what you dream about.
But let me clarify: retiring from facilitating workshops.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But what you do when you go into a leadership role is that the first thing that strikes you is that you're being lifted into that role because you're probably older and know more than other people do around you, and that's exactly when you start facilitating, or you start leading things, or teach for that matter.
Yeah, but I always say in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. I certainly don't think I have all the answers. I never had. I've always said I only believe 80% of what I say, because if I look back 5 years and I look at a video of myself saying something like, at least 20-30% is wrong. So it must still be the same right now. To doubt yourself, in the moment.
Maybe that is the criticism element, isn't it? Exactly.
Maybe it is.
You take risks even during the teaching. Yeah. That's exactly what you're brilliant, because you're playing people's minds, and they can play with their own minds when you do it.
To ask that question, what if it's me that's off? That's a difficult question to ask when you're projecting on someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.